Washington legislator Matt Shea accused of domestic terrorism, report finds. Six-term Washington State Rep Matt Shea is accused of participating in an act of domestic terrorism against the United States, according to a report released Thursday.
A Washington state representative has been accused of engaging in an act of domestic terrorism against the United States. That's according to an independent report commissioned by Washington State House Republicans into Spokane Valley Representative Matt Shea. Investigators from Rampart Group LLC have obtained evidence that Representative Shea, as a leader of the Patriot Movement, planned, engaged in, and promoted a total of 3 armed conflicts of political violence against the United States government in 3 states outside the state of Washington over a 3-year period to include 2014, 2015, and 2016. In the report, they linked Shea to, among other incidents, the heavily publicized armed standoff in Bunkerville, Nevada, between the Bundy family and federal land agents in 2014 over a cattle grazing dispute.
Over the past 2 weeks, Cliven Bundy's clash with the federal government has attracted a militia of more than 20 people, earning him scorn from some Democrats.
They're nothing more than domestic terrorists.
And praise from some conservatives.
What Senator Reid may call domestic terrorists, I call patriots.
The 67-year-old Bundy owes $1.1 million worth of fees for grazing hundreds of cattle on federal land for 2 decades. When government agents tried to confiscate his cattle, Bundy and some of his armed supporters ran them off.
Welcome to Hannity.
The conflict even sparked a late-night battle between conservative talk show host Sean Hannity and comedian Jon Stewart.
The court isn't on Bundy's side. Even the Nevada state constitution, which Bundy claims to abide, isn't on Bundy's side. Who the hell is on this guy's side?
Have you thought about why you think your case has resonated so much with the American people?
Hannity.
What are we talking about here? Cows eating free government grass. Can I make my position any more clear to Mr. Stewart?
But Bundy's new comments about African Americans have cost him some conservative fans.
I want to tell you one more thing I know about the Negro.
The video shot this weekend was posted on YouTube.
And I've often wondered, are they better off as slaves, picking cotton, having family life and doing things, or are they better off under government subsidy?
On April 9, 2014, Representative Shea dispatched Liberty for All Washington militia leader Anthony Bosworth, a close associate, to the site of the conflict near Bunkerville, Nevada, to assess the situation to support the Bundys. The LFA leader, Bosworth, first sent communications to a militia blog asking for help, later posted to the blog, "Mission is a go," before departing for the conflict with the 2 associates 6:30 p.m. that day. The Oath Keepers militia announced Representative Shea was leading a group of state legislators and others to Bundy Ranch in support of the Bundy standoff. At the time, when Representative Shea published his call to arms, there were approximately 100 local protesters on site. Less than 24 hours after his calls to arms, approximately 1,500 armed militia members were on site in Bunkerville, Nevada. Take note, black people. Armed and ready to fight the federal government. The armed standoff carried with it significant risk of violence and bodily harm. Physical confrontations between BLM and protesters were videotaped and went viral on social media. More ranchers joined the protesters. Militia groups contacted Ammon Bundy. Then Bundy's wife went online and called in additional militia participants, many of whom were prior and active military. Keep that in mind for another post that I'm going to make. To include the Oath Keepers, 111%, Constitutional Sheriffs, and Peace Officers Association, and the White Mountain Militia. These militias appeared at the Bundy Ranch in full military-style camouflage uniforms, equipped with long guns and handguns, with the intent to defend the Bundy's position, recover the Bundy's cattle from the federal government, and vow to shoot and kill any BLM agent who crossed their line of defense. As a result, the federal government called in the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the governor and the lieutenant governor of Nevada, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department, and the Nevada Highway Patrol. Sensing that bloodshed and potential civil war was inevitable, BLM authorities called for agents and law enforcement officers to stand down and free the cattle. This emboldened the militias, the Patriot Movement, and the Bundys as a win against the federal government. Representative Shea's actions in the armed standoff at Bunkerville revealed evidence of his planning and promoting political violence against employees of the U.S. government and law enforcement officers who were lawfully attempting to execute a federal court order.
They're making it seem like they did this real brave, bold move. You get it? They're making it seem like they went up there and did this really brave and bold move and stood up against the government. They leave one thing out. The government ended up backing down. Now, the government didn't back down because all of these redneck soldiers. The reason why the government backed down is because these fucking militia group, redneck, white supremacists, they took women and children up there. And they pretty much hid behind the women and children. They said this. They put the women and children out there in front of them, and they said if the government starts shooting, they'll get the women and kids first. And that's going to go all around the world. Which to me is such a bitch-made move. So don't give them props as if they were like on some brave. They weren't that brave. They did some real fuck shit. They put their women and children out there to get shot. So the government, the soldiers was like, hey, we're not going to shoot no women and kids. We're not going to shoot no women and kids. Come on, all right, we'll leave. If you guys are that cowardly, keep the cows in the land. It was that type of thing. It was effective. It was effective. Well, we can't do that because we put women and children out there in the civil rights movement and they beat the shit out of all of them women. So we stopped doing that. That's why I get on when black feminists start talking about, well, the Black Power movement, they left women out because they were beating the shit out of women. So the brother said, hey, y'all stay home. We're going to go out there with our guns. See, the Black Panthers, they stood up with their guns and made the women stay home. That to me was powerful. They should have been more strategic about it. You did? But don't let those dudes fool you that they went up there and like so they backed the government down. They went and put their women and children up there in the forefront. So let's be very clear on that. Let's be very clear on that. Let's be very clear on that. Do your research on that.
Independent investigators commissioned by the Washington State House of Representatives found that Shea, as a leader of the Patriot movement, planned, engaged in, and promoted a total of 3 armed conflicts of political violence against the United States government between 2014 and 2016. So he did 3. It was 2014, 2015, and 2016. He was very busy in the 6 years he was in office. The report also concluded that Shea was involved in training young people to fight a holy war. He created a pamphlet called Biblical Basis for War and advocated for replacing the government with a theocracy and the killing of all males who do not agree. Chat messages showed Shea, a lawyer who was first elected in 2008, condoned intimidation of opponents, political activists, government officials, and Muslims. Notice I'm sure there's a group that they left out. Or maybe they just include us in political activists. Whatever. He also offered to conduct background checks on political opponents. Following the release of the report, Shea was suspended from the House of Republican Caucus, a serious form of discipline. He was also stripped of his position as a ranking member of the House of Environment and Energy Committee. So that's oil and gas and whether or not you have solar electricity. He is a ranking member on this committee. According to investigators, Shea visited the Bundy Ranch in Bunkerville for a couple of days. While there, he developed a strategy for leadership over future Patriot movement armed resistance against the federal government by creating a coalition of Western state leaders from Idaho, Washington, Arizona, and Nevada. The Patriot movement is a far-right, anti-government extremist group, according to the Southern Poverty Law Center. A core tenet is that the government should not own public lands.
Land. Everybody coming to the country got land but you. As a race, when they say we're going to start building wealth based on land. And George Washington, the first one said, well, all the wealth is going to be in the land. I want 100,000 acres of free land. And then Thomas Jefferson said, well, if he's going to get 100,000 acres of free land, I want 100,000 acres of free land. Then Patrick Henry, you all read about in your history book, that said, give me liberty, give me death. He also said, hell, give me some land. I want 65,000 acres of free land. And so what the white society did while blacks were being enslaved, they gave every immigrant come to the country. As soon as his foot hit the ground, he picked up over 750 acres of free land per immigrant. Then for every slave, they only got another 150 acres of free land. And so after about 100 years, this country had given away over 2 billion. They gave away 2 billion acres of free land to immigrants. Now, why is that? Now, that's where your wealth is. Now, in that land, not only the value of the land, but in that land, what do they have? They got timber, gold, chrome, magnesium, gold, silver, oil.
Resources.
Resources. Yeah. That's the resources. Blacks don't have any resources. Mm-hmm. So when you came and say, I want 40 acres of a mule, they said, you got to be crazy. Not give you 40 acre mule. We just gave away $2 billion. We're gonna give you anything. And other Europeans came in about the same time with 1862. They gave this away, and all the newcomers, you're gonna get 150, and coming from Europe, you cross the Mississippi River to develop the Western countries. They gave away 20. They gave it 20 in 24 hours. They gave away over 2 million acres of free land. They started railroad lines, 11 railroad lines. They gave them 24 million acres of free land, but blacks never got any land.
So on the incident that happened in 2015, I couldn't find any good video news clips or good news articles. So we're going to read straight from the FBI report, okay? In August 2015, an elderly veteran of Priest River, Idaho, who had suffered a stroke resulting in a healthcare professional adding his name to the National Instant Criminal Background System as a person not eligible to purchase firearms. The veteran was notified by the Veterans Administration that the VA employee would come to his home, inspect, and remove his firearm, pursuant to VA regulations for individuals receiving VA benefits. It lists various Facebook posts where he called people to come. In one of the posts, he writes, "We cannot let this stand. The seizure of the guns of one of us is a seizure of the guns of all of us. Please attend if at all possible. Right now, we have legislators and citizens from Washington and Idaho headed to this location. Reports indicated that approximately 100 individuals showed up, many armed, and stood with Representative Shea at the veteran's home to prevent the VA employee from entering. Representative Shea can be heard on a YouTube video of his speech at the rally referring to the VA's actions as bureaucratic terrorism and claimed that such gun seizures have been going on throughout the country, and today it stops at Priest River. Today, we are telling the federal government that they are going to have to come through us to get to this veteran." So they discovered a document called Idaho Deployment, Operation Armed Backyard, which basically lists exactly like the war plans, the strategic plans that they had to make this possible, like if this turns into a standoff between them and the police or the VA or whoever. So the document entitled Idaho Deployment, Operation Armed Backyard offers evidence of planning and coordination with others for an operation that Representative Shea understood could lead to violence and could develop into a protracted engagement with the federal government as experienced in his earlier Bunkerville standoff. Okay, so now what happened in 2016? Armed and angry, the activists seized the property to protest the imprisonment of 2 ranchers convicted of setting fires that spread to federal land. The protest quickly blossomed into a challenge of the federal government's right to federal land, during which the occupiers blatantly violated laws against possessing firearms in such a facility.
We're going to stay here until we have secured the land and the resources back to the people of Harney County, and where they can get back to ranching, get back to logging, get back to using these lands without feeling fear and intimidation, and that's our goal. They're literally taking the people's lands and resources away and putting counties and states in economic crisis. As you may or may not know, everything that we use, everything that we benefit as people comes from the land. This coat that I have on, the food that we eat, all of that comes from the land and resources, and the federal government knows that that's where wealth is generated from, and they're taking it and stealing it from the people. The federal government knows that that's where wealth is generated from, and they're taking it and stealing it from the people.
But blacks never got any land. But blacks never got any land. But blacks never got any land.
The report found his actions reveal evidence of his planning and promoting political violence against employees of the U.S. government and law enforcement officers who were lawfully attempting to execute a federal court order. Washington State House Republican leader J.T. Wilcox said in a statement, Shea has been suspended as a representative, removed from his House ranking on the House Environment and Energy Committee, and removed from his House committees. Wilcox is calling for Shea's resignation and said the House has referred the full report to the FBI. Shea responded in a post on Facebook saying he refuses to step down.
So while we're being distracted with impeachments that can't go anywhere because they don't have the votes, and elections that really doesn't mean a damn thing because they're going to elect Trump again because they don't have any Democrats that's going to be able to beat him, being that the Democrats want to ignore the best voting bloc that they've ever had, which is us, foundational Black Americans. And so since they have chosen to ignore us, they don't have the votes, so Trump will win again. So be prepared, family. But while they distract us with all of that, they got whole elected officials that the FBI, not me, not Bruck did not say this. I did not do an investigation. I didn't go out there with my Susie Q pad and take down notes and interview people and figure out that they were involved in armed actions against the United States government. I didn't figure this out. The FBI figured this out. So while they're distracting us with this, they are serving in government and leading arms to take over said government. And this is what Neely Fuller means when he says that the white supremacists take every side of every argument.